I'm Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit of grade from A+ to F. So this is the fallout show to WWE Fastlane, which it didn't quite turn out as well as I thought it was going to, but it means that the next stop is WrestleMania itself. So without any further ado, let's crack on with it. Hit the intro. So we kick off this week with Daniel Bryan coming down to the ring, and he's got a chair in his hand. He gently brags about making Roman tap and says that he would be champion right now if it wasn't for Edge nailing him with a chair. So he wants a rematch, and he wants a rematch tonight. So he says, I'm going to sit here and wait until I get what I want, and then out comes Adam Pearce, and he's like, look, Bryan, you know we can't do that. The next match is scheduled to be Edge, and it just wouldn't be fair. And he goes, okay, well then, how about whoever wins that match, I face them immediately afterwards, and I get my shot at the belt again. Pearce says no. Bryan brings up the fact correctly that it is a massive double standard because he had to go through that himself. And then he's like, well, what about if I face them the night after? And then out comes Edge. Edge runs Bryan down for wanting to pick the bones, and he's like, it's my match. And then the pair tussle. Edge hits Bryan with a chair and then slinks off up the ramp. Now I'm going to give this one a B- for the delivery alone. I think the delivery alone took it up to a B-, but the promo itself was all right. This was sort of a foregone conclusion though, so it's not really that surprising. I was sort of hoping we'd have Daniel Bryan just stay in the middle of the ring all night though and refuse to budge. That would have been quite interesting. Another thing to note, Edge slinked off up the ramp while doing a little bit of a smirky smirk, like just a little bit of a heely twinge there to Edge. We then go to Roman Reigns backstage, who's just watched all of this unfold, and Paul Heyman's behind him and Jay's sat on the couch next to him, and he's like, Paul, bring me Adam Pearce. And he sends Jay with Paul, and he's like, look, use force if necessary. And Jay's like, you sure, man? And he's like, what are they going to do? Fire us? And then we go to our first match of the evening, which is a rematch from Fastlane, Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura takes charge, laying Rollins out on the apron and getting some shots in, but Rollins is able to turn the tide and firmly establish control for a little bit. Nakamura then ramps things up with some lightning strikes and a sliding knee, but Rollins is able to stop the pace dead with a Falcon Arrow. Seth dodges a Kinshasa attempt though, but gets caught into a triangle. He's trapped, but he starts powering himself up, lifts Nakamura, breaks it, hits a stomp, picks up the 3, but then post-bell keeps the beat down going. He's just going in on Nakamura, going in on him. Out comes Cesaro. Cesaro goes to grab Rollins into the swing. Rollins escapes, and there's just this kind of moment of, ooh, you. I'm going to give this one a B-. But look, I know that it's not nice seeing Nakamura lose, and I know that it just feels kind of like he's being mistreated, but at the same time, it all makes sense within the confines of the story. Nakamura has only just returned to singles action from tag action, so, you can justify that maybe he's just let his guard down a little bit and he's got to get himself toughened back up. Rollins needs to look strong heading into this match against Cesaro, and there's a past between Cesaro and Nakamura, so, it all just fits together nicely. Both guys really did work together well in terms of the match itself, though. It looked effortless. We then go back to Roman backstage, and Adam Pearce has been brought to him, and Roman's like, look, mate, you got to understand something. You've got me for WrestleMania for one title defense, and you've got me for one night. Pearce is actually like, Roman, I kind of agree with you on this. I understand, but I have to make a decision, and I've got to make it by the end of the night. We then go to Seth Rollins backstage, who's going absolutely banana at Cesaro for attacking him there, and he's like, Cesaro, you'll never swing me again. I challenge you to a WrestleMania match. And then out of nowhere, of course, Cesaro pops up, swings him again, launches him off onto the concrete, and accepts. Next up, we got a 6-man tag, which pits Big E and the Street Profits against Apollo Crews and the Alpha Academy. And if you watch the opening of this one, you can just see that E is desperate to get his hands on Apollo, but it's Otis and Dawkins that start. Ford gets in, outpaces Otis for a bit, and then Gable gets in, and they have a nice back and forth. There's one moment where Ford sort of springboards himself over the rope like a lawn dart, and Gable just catches him into a Northern Lights suplex. What? Apollo then gets in, and then Big E gets in. Apollo immediately tags out, and E cleans house. He gets hands on everybody but Apollo. However, when he's manhandling Gable, he gets him into a pin position. Apollo gets in, breaks it up, and then as things do in 6-man matches, it all breaks down. Everybody's getting in and around it. There's a lot of confusion, and in that mess, Apollo is able to roll E up for the victory. Now, I'm only going to give this one a C+, but Apollo did manage to, one, get himself one over on Big E here, which is nice because he's been losing a lot, and at the same time, he's advanced Alpha Academy past Street Profits, kind of, by getting the win here. That being said, it didn't really feel like a decisive win, but then does it need to be with Apollo being healed? Does him doing stuff like this just make us want to see Big E absolutely lay waste to him all that much more? I do feel ready for Apollo to take the title, but it is a bit of an odd one. At least it feels like it's definitely going to be a bigger deal match than Fastlane. We then go to Adam Pearce backstage, just walking along a corridor, and Edge pops up and he's like, Adam, what the hell are you doing? Pearce is like, look, I work for the company and it's my job to make decisions that are for the best for the company. And Edge is like, well, you better make the right decision or else. And now it's time for the KO show, and this week's guest is, of course, Sami Zayn. So Owens shows footage of Sami attacking him last week, and he says he wants answers, and then out comes Sami after a little bit of a pause, and he's like, look, sorry, the conspiracy's just getting to my head, and, you know, I know you were going to ask me if I'm sorry. The answer is yes, I'm sorry. And Owens is like, no, that's not the answer I'm looking for. And as Sami's getting into the ring, he's like, oh, well, you must want to know if you can still be in the documentary. And he's like, no, that's not. And he's like, of course you can still be in the documentary, man. There's the answer you were looking for. And Owens eventually has enough of this, snaps on him, and challenges him to a Mania match. And Sami is backed into a corner. He doesn't really have anything else that he can say but yes, and so he begrudgingly accepts. And then Owens, having got his answer, decides to beat a little bit of poo out of Sami. So I love this. I'm going to give this an A-. Everything about Sami just being this snivelly, horrible, cowardly character I just love it. Owens being the parent in the situation and shouting at him and trying to get just a little bit of sense out of him was great too. And hell, we know these guys are capable of amazing matches. And we know that Kevin Owens loves big Mania moments, so pirate ship anybody? Will he jump off it? Will he load Sami into one of the cannons and fire him out across the arena into a giant net? Could that be the stipulation? We then go back to Adam Pearce backstage, and this time he is approached by Daniel Bryan, the third of all of the Christmas ghosts. And Bryan's like, look, you know the right decision deep down, man. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to make your mind up for you, but you know the right decision. If you just look inside yourself, search inside yourself, you know it's true. Next up, we've got Bianca Belair versus Tamina. And just before the match, there's a moment with Bianca being asked by Kayla about Sasha slapping her last week. And Bianca's like, you know what? I just wasn't going to rise to it. I'm going to be the better person. I'm better than her anyway. It's standard, sort of fair. In terms of the match, though, Belair gets a really hot start. Natty gets sent to the floor. And then when Natty does try to capitalize, she can't really gain any ground because Belair's too quick. Bianca then goes up top, only for Sasha's music to hit and cause a distraction. Down Sasha comes slowly toward the ring. And while the referee's talking with Natalya, Tamina levels Bianca at ringside. And when we come back from the break, Sasha is now on commentary. So at this point, Natty's taken full control, but Belair is fighting back. She even manages to evade a sharpshooter. However, there's a bit of a double down after this when Belair accidentally knocks herself and she rolls to the outside of the ring, and Sasha sort of gets in her face. She slaps Sasha, gets back in, hits the KOD on Natty, who's been waiting patiently all this time, and picks up the win. Post-bell, of course, Sasha then beats her down a little bit. I'm going to give this one a B+. For what was more of an angle match than a match. I think it was executed quite well. I do feel like Natty could have been given a few more chances to look more like a credible threat, but this does feel like it's starting to undo the hard work that, they've put in to turn the boat around, no pun intended. We then go to Roman Reigns' dressing room and Edge pops up and Roman's like, whoa, you've got some balls coming in here. And Edge is like, look, we got a problem. Bryan is trying to steal our spotlight. And you talk about, having all this sway backstage, well, you better put it to use, because if Bryan gets his way here, then I can pin him to win the title. I don't need to pin you. Your chances, in the immortal words of Scott Steiner, will drastic go down. And now for the final match of the evening, we've got Rey Mysterio versus Dolph Ziggler, with both Dominic and Robert Roode at ringside, of course. Dolph starts off by putting that size advantage to good use, but Rey is able to outspeed him and almost hits an early 619. Rey then sends him to the floor, gets onto the apron, launches off the apron into a Rana position. Dolph catches him into a powerbomb predicament, lifts him up, and then yeet, just straight over the barricade, and Rey just disappears. It's like he could be falling eternally down a hole. It's just whoop, and his little leggles just completely go. It was just really cool. I wasn't expecting to see that from Dolph, but when we get back from the break, of course, Ray is being ground into the mat like mincemeat. Ray mounts a comeback, but Dolph's able to hit the famouser. He misses the super kick, but gets lined up for a 619, only for Robert Roode to interrupt. Dominic then hits the ring, takes care of Roode, and I think you all know where this one's going. That's right, even though he hits a zigzag, Dolph gets caught into a 619, and Ray picks up the 3. I'm going to give this one a B, you know? While it wasn't an instant classic or anything, it got me really excited about watching Dolph Ziggler wrestle again. The tag team division on SmackDown seems to have quite an established hierarchy regardless of who is holding the belts, and I feel like not everybody seems to get as much featured time as others, and if they do, they're maybe not presented in the best way. But this story, while basic, has yielded some solid work, and I don't think we can really argue with that. I don't really know if Ray should have won here. It didn't really feel like the right decision, but I don't know. I got really excited about watching Dolph and then started thinking about how much I'd like to see Dolph and Roode just flourishing on the singles scene again. And finally, it is time for Adam Pearce's decision. And out comes Roman, Jay, and Paul. Then out comes Edge. And then after a little bit of a wait, out comes Daniel Bryan. Now, the feeling in the ring is quite frosty. It's almost like high noon at Yuma. But Pearce is like, look, I think I've reached a decision where I've taken everybody's concerns into account. And I think you all have valid points. He says, Roman, look, you're only going to have to defend the belt in one night. And you're only going to have to defend it the once. We're going to make it a triple threat match. Roman, hearing this, is immediately quite furious. He's getting in Pearce's face, and then a brawl breaks out. Everybody's fighting, everybody's going backwards and forwards, but ultimately, it's Edge who stands on top. And at one point, he's got Roman face down on the mat, Bryan face down on the mat, each with a chair under their heads, and he goes out of the ring to pick up another chair. Officials then storm the ring, and Edge has to sort of fight them off, and then they get Bryan and Roman out of there, and Edge opens the chair, puts it down, and just sits and stares angrily as we go off the air. I'm going to give this a B. As I said, it was very expected, but the delivery here, while again really simple, really rudimentary, was great. Roman's now in a compromised position where he could lose the title via third party. Edge is furious to the point where I could maybe even sense a little bit of a heel turn throughout the evening for Edge on the horizon. And Bryan is just quietly confident, quietly smug. It's quite a nice dynamic. Overall, I think SmackDown has just clawed its way to a B- this week. It's a fallout show, isn't it? There's always a lot of recap to do, and then a lot, especially around this time of year, a hell of a lot set up for WrestleMania. We had some shining moments, we had some good wrestling, but we also had a fair bit of fluff, didn't we? So by no means was it a bad show. Just when you go into this episode, if you are going to watch it, don't expect the same level of momentum you've had recently. It's not too far off, but it's definitely a more story-heavy week. But anyway, I've been Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling. This has been Graded for Friday Night SmackDown. What did you think of the show? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.